Good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing today? My name is Matt, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to be guiding you through Company Archive. And the session obviously is due to start at 2 o'clock, which is now, and should last approximately 45 minutes. In fairness, as always, it's probably going to be a bit less than that, around about 30, 35. The reason for this webinar is a lot of questions are asked about the differences between certain aspects of the program, being Clear Audit Trail, Company Archive, and also taking a backup. So what we're going to be doing today is on the next page. We're going to be looking at what is an archive, explaining that in detail, and the differences between, as I say, backing up Clear Audit Trail and taking an archive. Frequently asked questions, reason for the webinar again, we're going to be going through those. We're going to be looking at how to take an archive and when is it appropriate to do so. And then we're going to be looking at how to access it. And an add-on to that question is how to revisit your company data once you've looked at an archive. But again, we'll have a look at that in a bit more detail as we go on. The big emphasis is going to be on the differences between archiving, backing up, and Clear Audit Trail. Very important that we get these jotted down. And then we'll be going through a summary about what we've learned. And throughout, as always, you can always ask questions. So these are the rules if you haven't been here before. If you have been here before, you'll know them. Essentially, your microphone is muted, so we're not going to hear you cough or sneeze. You can say hello to the radio. We're not going to be interrupted whatsoever, so do not worry. I've attached 2 handouts, one in black and white and one in colour. A copy of the slides with handy links and useful resources in there for you, for your reference. You can download them and print them off, or download them and keep them just to view as a PDF file. As well as this, you have myself to answer questions throughout the webinar, and you also have Michael at hand to answer questions throughout the webinar. So test our brains. You can do that by clicking on the speech bubble with the question mark there. Send us your question. We prioritize answering questions to do with the topic, so archiving data today. If we can't answer a question, or we run out of time, or it needs a bit more consideration, we'll follow up with you directly with an email. So don't worry, we will answer your question, be it within the next 30 minutes or immediately after. Superb. So hopefully we're all settled. Let's get cracking. First, I'm going to ask you a little question. What is your understanding of the company archive itself? So I'm going to run a little poll for you here. It should appear on your screen within the next 20 seconds. It's really okay if you don't know the answer to this question. No names are going to be revealed, anything like that at all, so don't worry. Just give an honest answer as to what you think a company archive is. Maybe you do this all the time and you just want a refresher. Maybe you've never done it before and you've got no idea. By the end of this, you will know what a company archive is, but let's just have a little test at the start. What do we think? I'll wait until a good 70%, 80% have answered, and then I'm going to close the poll. Superb. Excellent answers so far. Brilliant. I'm going to close the poll now because the majority have answered. And let's have a look at what those answers were. So as you can see, 55% takes a read-only copy of your data. 30%, it removes old data. 15% backs up your data. I'm not going to tell you the answer straight away. We're going to go through the slides, and the slides shall do that for you. So what I'll do at the end of this session is I'll rerun that poll, and hopefully we'll have 100% in one of those 3 answers. We shall see. So back to the slides. What is an archive? So an archive, as it says in front of you there, is a read-only copy of your data as it appears in the program at that time. So it includes your logon details, so your login name and your password. So if you take an archive, for example, on a Monday, change your password on a Tuesday, but then you want to revisit the archive, you would have to use Monday's password, if you're with me. So it freezes that information as it is. Now, when you're in an archive, you can't add anything new, but you can remove and edit records for GDPR purposes. So customers' details, suppliers' details, that kind of thing. That's one of the laws. But what you can't do is process within there. You couldn't add invoices, for example. Now, an archive is brilliant because it's an instant access to revisit your historical data. So if you've been taking archives since 2014, for example, with a click of a button, you can jump straight back into that period in time and look at what was happening in the business at that period in time and run reports for that period in time. Good for auditors. Most auditors will accept an archive. I always say most. I haven't heard of any that don't, but always check with them first. But an archive is a great tool for them. You just send over the file separate to your live data. You can keep processing and they can check what they need to check. Fabulous way of doing things. It does not remove transactions. So hopefully that's answered some of the questions straight away. An archive does not remove anything. Imagine you take a photograph of a flower in the back garden. Just because you've taken a photograph, all of a sudden the flower doesn't disappear. All you've done is create a record of that flower. That is exactly what an archive is. So everything stays as it should be and as it is. It's an extra step to remove transactions. Archive files are saved within your data path, be it direct to your C drive or your network location. A little asterisk on that one, they're not shared by remote data access in the same way that other information is. So if you do use remote data access and you've got one user taking archives, nobody else will have access to them if they're just using remote data access. They would have to be shared. Information on that is going to be on our help site or contact your IT. If you don't have IT, contact our inbound telephone team. They'll be able to help guide you through that process as well. The important thing to note as well is that you need to have access to the software to be able to view the archive. For example, Manager, we know, can do anything. The all-powerful Manager can access everywhere in the program. And that is the username that can grant this access to other users if needs be. But if you're an auteur of your own work and you don't want anybody else taking archives, just use the Manager login. Absolutely fine. There's no necessity for this. It's not a must. An archive is probably a preference. It's not a you have to. Now, when would you prefer to take an archive? What are the scenarios? Year end, definitely. It even prompts you in the program, as I'll show you in the demonstration at year end, to take that archive. And that takes an archive of your company data as it is for that year. So you can revisit that year end and it saves it nicely and it ring fences that information off for you. You might want to take an archive before you do a clear audit trail. As well as taking a backup, you might want to archive the data in case there's any significant changes. That's another example that I would say. So a significant change off the top of my head could be a company name change. So while we were operating as X, this is our archive. Again, there may be different scenarios in your real world that are different to the one that I present you, but just as a for instance, any significant changes any time before you delete anything using a clear audit trail or a year-end process. But there's nothing stopping you from taking an archive when you want to. So, next slide. Run the year-end process close to the prior year. Reconcile first quarterly VAT return and submit. The clear audit trail. Reconcile second quarterly VAT return and clear records, customers and suppliers. These are all journeys that you may take during your financial year. What is the best thing to do? Well, first off, when you run the year end and you process close to the year, you want to run a backup. And that's because if year end doesn't turn out how you wanted it to, or there's been a mistype or whatever, human error, something could occur, you want to be able to create that safe point, that insurance policy that is a backup for you to restore before the process took place. And obviously you want to archive the data. You want to create that read-only copy so that auditors or yourself can reflect on that year. When you reconcile the first quarterly VAT return, what potential process would you do there? Run a backup. You can archive if you want separately to that, but more commonly, it's just a backup that's taken because that is a major processing. Next, clear audit trail. What would you want to do if you were going to be doing a clear audit trail? Run a backup and archive again. So a backup, create the insurance policy, archive, read-only copy of that data. Hopefully this is starting to make sense. Then you come to your second quarterly VAT return. Run a backup. Again, archive optional, but more commonly, run a backup. Create that save point in your system that you can run back to. And then clear records, customers and suppliers. So if you're about to have a clear out of all customers and suppliers, you're just having a reshuffle of the cards, you might want to run a backup just in case you go too far and delete one too many. But you want to create an archive so that you can look back at a period of time there and say, right, customer X was dealing with us at this time, supplier Y also. So you can see why you would create an archive and run a backup in that situation. The backup is just in case something didn't happen like you wanted to happen, so you can restore back to it. The archive is to look back for reflection. And then finally, when you start to prepare for your year end, you can run a backup and archive again. Nothing stopping you from doing that. So frequently asked questions. After archiving, can you then delete old records you no longer use, such as customers, suppliers, or nominals? Now, archiving is just a part of the process to reduce the size of your data. You can't clear any records until you've ran a clear audit trail. That's what a clear audit trail is. You are clearing your audit trail. You're removing information from Sage 50. You're getting rid of transactions. So the importance of taking a backup there is in case you take too much away or you're not happy with how it looks afterwards. So before you do a clear audit trail, sometimes referred to as CAT because of CAT, then always do a backup. Create that insurance policy. Second, do I have to specify a date to run an archive? Well, it just creates a snapshot of the data as it is at that point in time, so you don't have to create a snapshot. You can't create a period in time that you just want to archive, if you know what I mean. I couldn't in Sage 50, you couldn't in your Sage 50 say, I just want to archive January. That's not how it works. When you create an archive, you're creating an archive to that very second, that point. So it's not selective, just archives what is there. Third, can I select certain areas of the software as archive? No. It'll always make a full copy of everything in the software as it is. It's exactly what it does. So for example, another common one with that one is, will I be able to access bank feeds in that area in time? No, because that's live and it's connected to your Sage 50 if you use it. So when you reload your archive, you won't be able to access or process with bank feeds. You'll be able to have a look at the balances of your bank, etc., and what things looked like at that time, but you won't be able to interact with it in the way that you could in your live data, for example. Because Sage, in its essence, is a record-keeping software. That's exactly what it does. It keeps record. In the live, you can adjust these records. In an archive, you can't, unless it's for GDPR purposes. So I've done a lot of talking there, done 14 minutes. Hopefully it's not been too much to take in. What we'll do now is we'll switch to the demonstration and I'll take you for a whistle-stop tour through what we've been talking about. So here's my Sage 50 and I'm in my demo data that I created for year end, just for the purposes of this. So it's a small data set, not too large, so the processes don't take too long. Depending on how large your data set is, things can take a wee bit longer. And also take into consideration things like your network or your hardware, your laptop, etc., your computer, the speed of them. So Let's have a quick look here. What I'm going to first show you is the year-end option. So if we look at the top, you've got tools, period end, year end. And if you were to click on that year end, as if you were running your year end process, which I'm doing a webinar on next week as well, so I'll go into more detail on that. For today, we're just going to focus on the archive section. You can see here, year end prompts you to check data, check your chart of accounts, back up your data, as I was emphasizing before, and then archive. And you can see there is a reason why these are two separate options, is because they're two completely different things. Backing up, making sure you've got a copy of your live data that you can restore and continue to process in. Archive, again, is taking that photograph of your data as it is. So when you run your year end, you've got the option here. You could untick it or tick it. Now, what I would always recommend is ticking it. It's ticked by default. There's no reason not to do it. When you do put a tick in there, or you untick it and retick it, or if you click on archive location, this box pops up here. Archive company, your company name, the path to the archive itself, the description, and the folder in which it's going to be in. You can't change the path to the archive. You can change its description and the folder it goes to. Again, not to get too techie with that. The main thing I'm going to focus on this screen is the description for you. So this is where you've got kind of the freedom to reference files and archives as you want. So because I'm running a year end in this process, it's prompting me straight away, description, year end 2024. What I could do is I could call it pre-year end 2024, or I could just change the name if you have a shorter processing YE24. Do you know what I mean? So you, again, you're the author of that. You can create your own descriptions, but you've got the freedom to do so. So however you want things labeled. And then once you're running a year end, once you click the year end button, it'll automatically create that archive for you. I'm not going to do that in this section. I'm going to show you where else you can create an archive for and how to access them. But this essentially would create that archive for you. And it basically takes it from when it's being ran. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, the other way, just going to exit out of that screen, is to do a standalone archive. So an archive without running a process. So again, if there's been a major change, or you just want to make sure that you've got a read-only copy of something before you do any major processing, again, log in, making sure you've got all the permissions that you're meant to have, manager preferably, tools, period end, and this time, as you can see, archive company. You click on that, and guess what? The same box appears. The same rules apply. So you've got your description, which I'm going to say pre-cat, which remember was clear audit trail. And I'm going to click OK. And that's it. Nothing further that we need to do. The archive process has been completed. That's how easy it is. It may seem daunting if you've never done it before. You may think, oh, am I changing something here? Again, just to re-emphasize the confidence in yourselves, you're not changing anything. Okay, literally nothing. All you're doing is creating a snapshot of the data. So if I wanted to do it again, period end, archive company, I'll call this one test 1. Archive complete. And I could literally, I'm going to do it while I'm talking to you, do this again and again and again. Obviously, I'm not encouraging you to do this, but just to demonstrate, it has no bearing on anything other than taking that kind of digital photograph. Good question coming from Nicola there, which is, if we use data over remote access, Can each person take an archive of the same data snapshot? Correct. As long as they've got the permissions to do so, I will emphasize that, then yes, they can. Same way, tools, period end, archive company, and their archive will be saved to their C drive or network, but if you're using remote data access, it's going to be C drive. So correct. So if you went in at 9 o'clock in the morning and said, could everybody please take an archive? They would do. What I would suggest is having one person take the archive and maybe sharing it. But again, it's down to your processing and how you want things to be done. What I would do when you're taking an archive as well is just ask people not to be logged in and processing, because what you want to be able to do is take an archive which is accurate. Just a bit of a tip there. So as you see there, I've taken a few archives just as demonstration. Again, I was a bit gung-ho with it all. I wouldn't do that in a real life scenario. I could do, but there was no need. Just for the demonstration though, to show you now. How do we access it? So file, open, company archive. Once we click on company archive, this appears, the list. And as you can see, like Blue Peter, there's a few in there that I've prepared earlier. You've got version 1, 2, pre-CAT, so pre-clear audit trail, and also test 1 and test 2 that I just created. Whichever one I want to open, I would just click highlight and then open. So let's say I want to go to pre-CAT clear audit trail. I would click open. And what happens now is Sage is now like it would if you were opening a different company. It's delving into that archive, making sure that all the information is where it should be. And again, like I referred to at the beginning of the slides, passwords carry through. So whatever my password was when I took this archive is the password that I would use to access it. Once it's loaded, it looks no different. Absolutely no difference whatsoever to my live company data, which can be a bit disconcerting. I appreciate that, but there's clues. The major one is at the top of your screen here. Big letters, archive, the name of the archive. So pre-CAT, clear audit trail, demo year end, that's the company. So you've got archive, telling you what type of data it is, the title of the archive, and then the company name. And that tells you you're in an archive now. So once in here, as I say, we can't process, but for GDPR purposes, we can amend details. So again, not to go into too much detail or too many mechanics of this, if you were to highlight customers and click into A1 Design Services, as I've set up here, I could delete names and numbers and details. Click Save, and it's gone. And again, that is because it obeys the GDPR laws that you're allowed to do that. Okay, so that's the main reason Sage will allow you to amend archives. What you can't do is process. So I'm going to show you a long way around this, just so that you don't get your heart broken while you're processing and think, oh no, I've got to do all that again. If, for example, I forgot I was in an archive and I went invoices and credits, I clicked on new invoice, I could quite literally create the invoice. I'm going to quickly do a dummy one for you here. And I could spend a while creating an invoice for this company. And once I've done it, I think, brilliant, it's exactly how I want it to be. Click Save, this message will appear. This option is not available when working with an archive dataset or when in read-only mode. So when you click OK, it stays there. A quicker way to find out if you can do that or not is if you're in customers, for example, and you just click on batch invoice, it's going to pop up there. So the point of this demonstration right now is to show you it is read-only apart from the GDPR. Question in from Susan there is there any way you can globally delete GDPR info, i.e. delete all phone numbers in an archive? The answer is no, because that archive is saved to your hard drive. Unless your archive is saved to a network, then I would speak to your IT. Because assuming it is on the network, everybody has access to the same information. So that in theory would globally change it for everybody else. But if it's not, and it's saved to a hard drive, then no, because archives are saved to your C drive in that instance. It's your copy. Further detail on that one could become a bit more specific to your processing and how your company works. So what I would do is if your IT struggle or you don't have IT, call our support team. They'll guide you through the process on what you can do. And there was another good question from Susan as well. Very good questions coming in. So is there anything that can be done if you cannot remember the password used when you created the archive? Michael did answer it, but I'm just going to verbally communicate it with the group. You'd have to contact the support team in that instance. They would treat that call or the chat, online chat, as a forgotten password in live data. Same process. So you'd have to contact them for that one. There's no workaround for it. Obviously, your data needs to be secure. That is the reason why the password is still there when you take the archive. Hopefully that answers that question. So essentially, what we've learned here is how to load the archive. We've seen the message that appears, shows you that you can't process. So have no fear when you're in an archive. You can't change anything other than details of a customer, supplier, anything to do with GDPR can be deleted. And if you go back into these companies, you'll see postcode gone. So yes, it's a very good way of managing things. And I suppose it's a very specific thing to do to manage your GDPR for whatever reasons, but that's why the option is there if you need it. Another common question, and I could feel people asking it without typing it, is, Matt, you're in the archive. How do I get back to my live data? How can I tell? It's quite simple. Again, if you've never done it before, it's not. If you have done it before, it's easy. File, open company data, and it will take you straight back to your live version of the data. And those records that we edited, A1 Design Services, we edited them in the archive. If we had a double click on them in our live data, all the information is still there. That shows you they're completely separate, your live data to your archive. They're the same information, but completely separate files. There we are. So back to the slides. The difference between. So for this one, what I'm going to do, let's see if I can, oh, I can't run that poll again, unfortunately. But hopefully now we all know the difference between the archive, the backup, and the clear audit trail. Let's have a look. So the archive is the read-only copy, opened like a separate company as I displayed there. It doesn't remove transactions, and you do not need to enter a date to archive up to. It takes it from that moment right there, draws that line in the sand to that point that you take it. Backing up takes a copy of your data. It's a live copy of your data. It's an insurance policy in case anything goes wrong or you want to refer back to something and reload before processing took place. My recommendation is to always back up before any kind of processing takes place. Any VAT returns, any year ends, any month ends, anything like that, take a backup. It's nicer to have and not need than to need and not have in the case of a backup. And then clear audit trail. That removes all the transactions up to a date that you've specified. So if you've closed off your year end and you want to delete all the transactions from the previous year in order to keep your data set trim, keep it running quickly, then you would set up your clear audit trail to delete that year up to the start of the new year after you've taken a backup and an archive. And we were asked if there's a webinar for clearing the audit trail that can be attended or watched. Michael has answered, but again, just to verbally communicate it with you, it's available from the recordings list, and the link's going to be included in the follow-up email sent out to you. It's a bit too much to delve into right now and combine with the archive, because there's other mechanics at play with a clear audit trail and other things that we need to cover. But just know, for the basis of this, it is all going to be there. Good question from Lisa here. Can you run reports from within the archive? Yes, you can. Let me show you. So if we go File, Open, Company Archive, I'm just going to pick again on my pre-CAD, Clear Audit Trail. And this is the process that most auditors or people who want to see a snapshot of that year would take an archive for, is running the reports. So we're back in Archive, Pre-CAD. What I would do is I would go to the section in which I wanted to run a report. So let's just keep this simple, and let's just say I wanted to run profit and loss. Go to the normal codes, profit and loss. Click preview. And there we go. I'm going to run it from this period to that period. Choose my chart of accounts. And the report will appear in front. Still with the clickable links that you can access, because again, it is the company data. It is all there. All the information will be there. The only difference is you can't make any changes to it. So going back into archives and running reports, especially for the purpose of audit, is one of the most common things to do. Good question, Lisa. Thank you. No problem, Lisa. No problem at all. Right then, so back to the slides. Let's have a quick summary of what we've learned. So we've learned today that archiving creates a read-only copy of your data, including all historical and current information. Remember that photograph analogy of the flower. Just because you've taken a photograph of the flower doesn't mean it deletes itself. So just the same with an archive, just because you've taken one, it will not remove any transactions whatsoever. You would have to do your clear audit trail for that. You can take archives at any time, typically done as part of the year end or a major change, i.e. what I used in the example was a company name change. You need to use the same user credentials you've used when you're creating the archive as well. So that's where the username and password comes in. Granted, could be time between an archive and when you had a different password, for example, so it could be challenging. As Michael pointed out, you can always fall back on our support team to help you out there. There is things that we can do in order to guide you through that process, not lost forever. It enables you to view historical data, edit and delete records, and run reports. So when we say edit and delete records, we are referring to the GDPR as I showed you there. And running the reports, i.e. your trial balance, profit and loss, balance sheet, all the same. And any other reports that you want to run within there will work also. Key point, you cannot work from an archive. You cannot add new data. It's not going to happen. As I showed you with that error message there, just not a possibility, which is a good thing, if anything. So just while the last few questions come through for myself and Michael, I just want to touch on the subject of growing your knowledge. So again, we are doing the one-to-one bespoke training options. So if you want to be an expert like Michael in any area of the program, then you can ask and we will give you an hour or how many hours that you need. And we can guide you through things like stock control, CIS, the construction industry, banking, debtors and creditors. And this is where one of our guys, one of our geniuses, will give you a call on Teams and they will literally screen share with you and go through your data with you and set things up how you want them to be set up and tell you how you can take care of your data in the future. Invaluable sessions they are. And if you want anything like that at all, give us a ring or on the handout, click on the link that's on the slide there. I'm just checking to see if there's any final questions coming through. Doesn't look like there is. If there is, please ask them now. After this webinar, on your way out of the virtual door, you will be sent a survey. Please let us know what you think about the webinar. Also, let us know what subjects you want covered. There might be something you think, I wish I knew more a bit about that. If there's enough demand for it, we will build a webinar for you. We do listen to the feedback. We read every single comment that you leave us. It's how we grow and it's how we adapt. So if you could, let us know what you thought went well, what didn't, and what you want to learn in the future. That would be wonderful. Again, we read all the comments, so thank you in advance. Questions seem to have dried up. Michael's been quite busy. I'm going to send him off for a cup of tea now and grab one myself. And you're going to get 9 minutes back as well, so you may have time for a cup of tea or coffee of your own. Thank you very much for your attendance today, and hopefully we shall see you soon. Speak soon. Bye for now.